New York Giants fans, I am really excited about tonight. I get an opportunity to sit down with my guy, Jay Feliciano, and answer one simple question. A simple question that means a lot. Should Joe Schoen have an opportunity to pick his own quarterback? I'm Coach Gene Clemens, and I have a giant issue. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of A Giant Issue. I'm Coach Gene Clemens. New York Giants on SI. That is where you can go and get all your New York Giants news and information. Really, I don't really want to spend a whole lot of time. That's why I've got my guy, Jay Felicio, out here. FTN Fantasy Network, The Athletic. Anywhere that you're going to find some fantasy talk, you're probably going to find Jay hanging out in that area. Jay, thank you for joining me.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And I told you right before we started, apologize for the setup. We had some, some flooding in the bathroom upstairs, but everything's all good now. But yeah, I'm excited. We've this is the first time we've been on a show together, but we have, we've co-wrote a couple of pieces over at The Athletic, and it's good to finally get to talk to you face to face. And I feel like even though we lean on opposite sides of this slightly, we're both Giants fans that are kind of more of scorned lovers and just we want what's best for the team, but not reactionary. But we'll get into it here in just a second.
Yeah, and I think that's a perfect segue into this. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're coming to watch two people yell at each other, that's not what this is. This is going to be very similar to your old school debate that you probably saw like in a high school or in a debate club somewhere. It's going to be very structured. We're going to have an opening statement that we'll both have for 5 minutes. We'll have rebuttals that we both make to each other's statements, and then we'll have closing arguments. Jay is going to argue the affirmative. He's going to argue that we should allow Joe Schoen to pick his quarterback. I'm going to argue the negative, that we should not. But make no bones about it. I don't think it's necessarily the worst idea for Joe Schoen to pick his own quarterback, and I don't think Jay would be heartbroken if he was to not be able to pick his own quarterback. So
especially
think
after that press conference yesterday.
Yeah, the press conference definitely.
That was I wasn't very happy after that. But
yeah, it left a lot of people with a sour taste in their mouth. But with that being said, I want to get this started, and because you are the visitor, Jay, I will give you first rights to start. The floor is yours.
Well, I appreciate it, Gene. And yeah, like you said, although I do lean towards I would like to see Joe Schoen be able to choose his quarterback, I understand, the other side, but, think about it, what he was left with Dave Gettleman. I'm not even going to be able to, we don't have enough time to go over what Gettleman did to this team, but some of the free agency pickups, Nate Solder for $62 million, Golden Tate for $37.5 million, and of course, the lovely one touchdown from Kenny Golladay for $72 million. Signing OBJ, trading him right after, that was a disaster. Drafting Daniel Jones where he drafted him. I wouldn't mind it, Daniel Jones, if we got him later in the first or even traded back into the late first. But I hated where we drafted him for what he was. He was never going to be that guy that elevates your team. He was more of a game manager, somebody you would put on an established team that just needs a solid quarterback. I liked a lot of the moves that he's made. Granted, hindsight's 2020. The Daniel Jones contract was a mistake, but at least he structured it in a way where there's no guaranteed money after this year. We've got this escape clause where there's only going to be $11 million in dead cap after this in the 2025 season. So he built the contract, structured the contract in a way that he knew that there was a non-zero chance that he was going to have to exercise that clause. And you look at the contracts now that are being handed out to quarterbacks. If Jones was just decent, it wouldn't be that bad of a contract. I went at the time, the season that he came off of. I wasn't happy we gave him the contract, but I wasn't as mad about it as I am now. I thought it was okay. Let's see what happens. We know the offensive line has been a disaster. Daniel Jones is at the point where he's got the yips. He's Chuck Knobloch. He's David Carr. He's ruined by what happened on the team, and he was already, his ceiling was already limited. And the one thing that a lot of people don't like that Shane talked about yesterday was, a lot of the losses were within one score. Well, you do have to take that into consideration. 6 out of the 8 losses were within one score. Some of them, would have taken a 2-point conversion, but Daniel Jones is just, in some of those games, in all the games, just not made easy throws, wide open passes that could have been made that, could have been a difference in some of those games. But again, that falls on Shane for re-signing him. The condition this team was in with Gettleman. Barkley, I love Saquon Barkley. He's one of my favorite players of all time, but where we drafted him, when we drafted him, didn't make sense for the team. And then, Kyle Lauletta, Davis Webb in the early rounds, just the structure of the teams that Gettleman had. Shane was building from the complete ground up. I liked a lot of the moves that he made, signing Bobby to play linebacker, getting rid of Kadarius Toney for a third somehow, trading Leonard Williams, drafting Malik Neighbors. There's been some bad too with trading that 3rd round pick for Darren Waller. The offensive line still, is still a work in progress. I would have liked to see us trade Darius Slayton and Ojulari, but I kind of understand where, you set your price and you want to establish that you're not going to be one of those GMs that people can just wait out and you'll take whatever the best offer is on the table. So it's one of those I can kind of see both sides. He's drafted pretty well. Obviously Malik Neighbors has been a slam dunk. Tyrone Tracy has been a bright spot. The move that hurts the most for me is letting Xavier McKinney go. Obviously, Barkley is, tearing it up in Philly, but at this point where the team is, I agree with letting him walk. I don't think we should have paid him, just based on, not on anything to do with Saquon. I got no issues with Saquon, but this team just isn't where it needs to be to have that move make sense. I think my overarching theme here is the team was in such disarray when he overtook it from the wonderful Dave Gettleman. And he's made, in my opinion, more positive decisions than negative decisions. And where the Giants are at is slightly better than we're at with Gettleman, but at least the arrow is pointing somewhat up versus all the way down.
I appreciate it, Jay. I think for me, this thing comes down to three things, like 3 reasons why I just can't see him being in line to be the guy to lead this team into the future. The first one comes down to this. If you allow him to pick his quarterback, that means that you are locking into Joe Schoen for the next 3, maybe even 4 years, because you have to give him the opportunity to see what he has in his investment. The quarterback position is one where you tie the head coach and really more over than that, the GM to that position. So if you allow him to pick his quarterback, you're saying that I want to sign up for at least 3 more years of Joe Schoen. Because what happens if you allow him to pick his quarterback and then you say, don't really want to do it. Now you're in a situation like Chicago's in. where you have a quarterback in Justin Fields that the new regime doesn't believe in the same way that the old regime that picked him believed in him. Now you're asking a coach to take on a quarterback that he may not believe in, and now they're setting that quarterback up for failure. And we all see what's going on in Chicago. Like, yes, the Giants have not won games, but I feel comfortable in saying that the Giants haven't looked like the laughing stock of the league like some of these other programs have looked like. And that becomes the situation when you allow Joe Schoen to pick the quarterback and then a year later decide that you're going to fire him because the team's not doing well. That's big for me. And I think that is underrated. You are signing up for more years of a guy that you already feel shaky about after the first 3 years. The second thing, I need a GM that is not ego driven, that is somebody that is willing to listen to the village. What did the village say? Like, what did all of his advisors and the people, his brain trust that he put together, what did the owner, who, if nothing else, understands branding and understands star making, they all wanted Saquon Barkley back. They all, to a man, said, hey, Saquon Barkley's our identity. Saquon Barkley's who we are. You know what Joe Schoen said? He said, nah, we could get that same thing in Devin Singletary, not in Tyrone Tracy Jr., not in a rookie that we bring in. He thought that he could get the same type of Saquon Barkley production out of a group of backs coming in to do it. But what he didn't understand is the reaction that it would have, not just from the people on the outside going, oh man, you let like our linchpin guy go, but the people inside the building who are playing that went, well, what do you think about trying to win when you're not willing to resign our best player? Those things become ego driven. Him with Saquon having the nerve to believe that no other team would pay him money, to me is probably one of the most bonkers things that I saw. Like, you really thought that Saquon Barkley was going to go on the open market and demand $6 and $7 million? You thought that he would come back crawling to you because all of the deals that he got were lowball deals. That, my friend, is ego. And that's something that a GM can't have, but a first-time GM would have, because they think they know it all. Like, we've all been there when it's our first time doing something. We want to have our stamp on it. We want to say, this is my pick, my job, but at the end of the day, it's not about you. It's about the collective. And the collective said Saquon Barkley. The one said no. Finally, how do we know he's going to get this pick right? Like, if we're being honest about it, he had an opportunity to pick a right tackle. He picked the one right tackle that really nobody projected to play right tackle. Everyone projected him to play left tackle, left guard. There were two other tackles on the board. One of them has turned out to be the best pass blocking of the three. And that is interesting because they were trying to draft someone to help with pass protection. And they've passed on the best pass protecting offensive lineman in the draft. To me, that's egregious.
I completely agree with you with what you said, that if the Giants do let Joe Schoen draft the quarterback of the future, that it has to be a situation where you're committing yourself to him for 4 or 5 years. Having the Chicago situation, what Joe Schoen dealt with once he became the Giants GM, having to come in and deal with Daniel Jones. It's shown that it's not a recipe for success. Part of the reason why I want to do that is we've seen so much turnover, not only in the Giants head coach, but all over the league. Nobody's given enough time. And I think we've seen enough positive impact and smart decisions made by Joe Schoen that he does deserve a little more time. Now, the major mistake, there's no denying that the Daniel Jones move was one that set the franchise back a couple seasons. I still really like a lot of the things that he's done. You know, the Kayvon Thibodeau, Malik Neighbors, the Brian Burns trade. You know, and when it comes to the Saquon Barkley stuff, I agree with everything you said, except the part of I think you do have to take into consideration Tyrone Tracy. Not what you said about him thinking he could replace the production with Singletary. I'm with you there. That's definitely not the case. But I kind of feel like the move makes sense now. We got somewhat lucky drafting Tyrone Tracy where we got him in the way that he's looked, but kind of works into the favor of the running backs don't matter crowd, which I'm not necessarily one of them. But where the team is at, the mess that he put himself in with the Daniel Jones contract, I still think that it was the right move for where the franchise is to let Saquon walk. And I had no proof of this. I know there's been rumblings and stuff like that. I really feel like John Mara had his thumb on Schoen when it came to re-signing Daniel Jones. That's just my personal belief. I don't know if that's true or not. He's made the final decision, so it completely falls on him. But I feel like there was, from the rumors and the whispers, I feel like there was some pressure from ownership for them to retain Daniel Jones, and that may or may not be true, but that's just, you know, based on what I've heard, what I've seen, it's something that that's kind of just sat in the back of my head. I think there's been, like I said earlier, I just think that there's been more good than bad when it comes to Schoen, and I don't want to see this continue, you know, this continuous cycle that we've been in since 2012. That, you know, just every couple of years kind of starting over. And, you know, we should have got rid of Gettleman along. We should never, let's not even get into Gettleman, but I want to give him a chance. I want to, you know, we've seen what longevity does for teams. You know, look at Pittsburgh. You know, I want to give him a chance to be able to develop into a situation where, you know, we're not just knee-jerk reactions here and getting rid of everybody and starting fresh again. And, you know, who's to say that the next guy's going to be the right GM? You know, we've at least seen some success under Schoen. I think it's worth seeing at least a few more seasons.
I don't necessarily disagree with the idea that Joe Schoen has had some hits, some success. What I do think is very interesting is that nobody gives Dave Gettleman any credit for his successes. The bedrock that Joe Schoen has built this team on is Dave Gettleman picks. The picks that the players that he has let walk for either no money or no compensation, or he's traded away, where Dave Gettleman gets. So, like, while I can appreciate, hey, he you know, he was able to get from under some bad deals. Well, he put himself under some bad deals, right? Why are we 3 years into we were in cap hell when Dave Gettleman took over, and we still don't seem as if we're any further out of that cap hell? That's because of the deals and the moves that Joe Schoen has made. We can't put it all on Gettleman. At some point, the whole it's Gettleman's fault thing is going to have to run out, right? And as far as this idea that it was ownership that said, hey, we need to bring Daniel Jones back. Okay, let's say they did. Where was the pushback? Where was the, okay, we will give him the franchise tag and we'll pay him like a top quarterback. We're going to give him the franchise tag. Hey, but that means we're going to allow Barkley to test free agency because he doesn't have a contract. So for me, I look at these moves and go, for every bad Dave Gettleman move, guess what I can show you? A bad Joe Schoen move. But can you show me all of the hits that Dave Gettleman had at the level for Joe Schoen? I don't see a Dexter Lawrence that Joe Schoen has drafted. I don't see an Andrew Thomas that Joe Schoen has drafted. I don't know if any of these defensive backs that Joe Schoen has drafted is ever going to lead the league in interceptions. I don't know if any of these I don't know if any of these running backs that Joe Schoen has drafted is ever going to be the star and the highlight maker and the home run hitter to the level of a Saquon Barkley. We're just so happy to see Tyrone Tracy doing well that we don't even want to admit that Joe Schoen kind of just flubbed up into that, because we're looking at Tyrone Tracy saying he's great. Okay, cool. What happened to Gray? Wasted draft pick, right? We can say that Theo Johnson is trending in the right direction, but what happened to Daniel Bellinger? Seems like a wasted draft pick. So for every time we look at what Joe Schoen has done and go, well, he had Gettleman, somebody, when the Joe Schoen era is over, it's going to go, well, we had Joe Schoen. And that to me is why I don't get why we always go immediately to the David Gettleman blame, because now we're 3 years in and they've had 3 off seasons and this is what's been produced. Jay, you're gonna go into your final your closing arguments?
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm, like we've said all along, I see both sides, and when it comes to the whole Gettleman versus Schoen thing, I feel like Gettleman has been more extremes. When he's hit, they've been, like you said, those bedrock guys you build your team around. The Dexter Lawrences, but the misses have also really set the team behind. The Nate Solders, the Kenny Galladay's, moves like that. Really haven't seen those big swing and misses out of Schoen. And when it comes to guys like Thibodeau, it really hasn't had, we haven't. It's 3 years, but we haven't had the time to see where these guys are going to go. That's why I want to give them some more time, because there was a couple people who, there was a lot of people who didn't like the Dexter Lawrence pick 1 or 2 years in, and then now he's sexy Dexy with the leading a defense that's tops in the league in sacks. And sometimes you do have to have a little patience, and without just repeating everything that I said over again, I agree with a lot what you said, and I feel like it's more of, in my opinion, Joe Schoen, it's kind of more laid out of less extremes. The bad hasn't been quite as bad as Gettleman. The good hasn't been. I'll give you that 100%. I don't think you can point to a single move that Schoen has made that has been a hit, like Gettleman with Lawrence, with some of these other picks. But I just feel like we haven't given enough time for everything to develop. And I hate the idea of starting the clock all over again and just starting fresh with, like you said, similar to, is Schoen going to draft the right quarterback? Who's the GM that's going to come over? It's, if we get rid of Dable, who's a coach that's really going to want to coach this team? So I would like to give it some more time versus starting the clock over. And, I guess it can't get any worse, but I've been saying that for about a decade now, and it seems like it continues to. And that's pretty much it.
Well, I will give this to you. I will give you this. I think that patience is always the way. So if I want to agree with anything, I want to agree with the idea that patience can actually work out for the Giants. We don't know what these rookie and second and third year players are going to be in another 2 years. They have made some moves to try to to try to like make life better for them when it comes to maneuvering around the cap and things of that nature. But I still come back to this. This job, that is the GM and the head coach, because to me, if you get rid of Dable, you might as well get rid of Joe Schoen and vice versa. And here's why. Because this job will never be as attractive as it will be knowing that you can come off of the Daniel Jones contract, knowing that you do have young receiving weapons everywhere. You can make a decision on guys whether you want to keep them or let them go. You have expiring contracts. You get an opportunity to pick your franchise quarterback in a draft that people keep trying to make it seem as if it's not going to be as good at the quarterback position as last year's, except nobody came into the season last year thinking that Jaden Daniels was going to be what Jaden Daniels is right now in the NFL. I was one of the only people who had Jaden Daniels ranked higher than everybody else, including Caleb Williams. I had Jaden Daniels and Michael Penix Jr. as guys who I thought were plug-and-play day one guys. Now I'm looking at the opportunity to draft the most pro-ready quarterback in the last 10 to maybe 20 years, because nobody is going to be able to handle the pressure like Shedeur Sanders is going to be able to handle the pressure. That is attractive to all of the GMs out there. A potential GM that might already be in the New York Giants front office right now. A head coach that is waiting for the right opportunity, like maybe Ben Johnson over there in Detroit, like maybe Aaron Glenn over there in Detroit. Like, there are guys, I don't want to see the retreads, and this is the opportunity to get fresh faces that are excited about coming in and building from the bottom with pieces that can make you good immediately. Because I agree with you 100%. And I agree with Joe Schoen. They were in a lot of games. I've come on this show and said many times, they should have won that game. They should have won this game. They should have won that game. And so I give them credit for that. But I also look at the common denominator in the losses, and I have to give them blame for that as well. And so, do I feel confident? Would I be okay if they ended up picking a guy? I would. Do I feel confident that they don't mess up the cha-cha like Herm Edwards used to say? I can't feel confident in that. I don't know if they have two left feet out there. Joe Schoen, just, to me, he feels like a guy who's making it up as he goes along. And that is extremely scary for a GM who is supposed to be proactive and not reactive. Ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate it. We want to hear from you. Leave those comments, and we know all of you do. Y'all guys come on there and tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. I appreciate it. Definitely leave the comments in here. Hit us up on X at GMenJ. That's J Felicio's handle. At Gene Clemens, that's my handle. Hit us up on X. Leave comments. We want to hear from you. Which side are you leaning on this debate? Do you want to see Joe Schoen get a chance to pick his own quarterback, or do you think that now is the perfect time to start fresh and start anew? I appreciate all of you joining in. Jay, I really do appreciate it, man. Thank you. This was a lot of fun. We'll have to do it again and just chop it up after a game or something a little bit less intense.
No, I'd love to. I appreciate
I definitely, and hopefully the Yankees do the right thing and roll out the Brinks truck for my
Blank
guy.
Check.
Yeah. We don't need to start like acting like we want to be, Scrooges with the money now. Like, if there was ever a time to get this to get this $600-700 million out. Just go ahead and stroke the check. Like, close your eyes. We need our guy back, right?
The boss would have already done it. He would have.
Oh yeah, it would have been done already.
The keys to Yankee Stadium, the checkbook, everything.
Absolutely. Make sure that you check out all of his work at The Athletic, over there at FTN Network. What else you got going on, Jay?
Yeah, those are the two main things. Most of my work right now is I have 2 weekly articles coming out at FTN. One came out today. It's a 10 things you need to know about the week, and I basically use FTN's tools to take a look at what's going on around the league. And every Friday I have a Dynasty Moves to Make article that comes out, and just kind of, a snapshot of where things are and some moves that you can make to either make a push or rebuild in Dynasty. And I'm a video editor over there at FTN as well. Everything you see on or most of everything you see on the socials, the starts and sits and things like that, I edit them and put them out.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I really do appreciate it. Make sure that you check out all of our New York Giants news and information at New York Giants on SI. That's where you get all the latest updates. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button. Like, literally, I really do appreciate you guys. We have almost over doubled our subscriptions since we started doing the podcast. I'd like to think we've had a little bit to do with that. And all of your continued patronage and watching this podcast, running up the numbers. We really do appreciate it. Make sure you check out my work other places. A lot of my fantasy stuff at Fantasy Life. We just had a start sit column that'll be popping out. You want to check that out. You'll be surprised at my deep sit. Also check out my HBCU column that just dropped on Stats Perform. Make sure you check that out for the analysts. Just start continuing to shed light on HBCUs everywhere. And obviously, you want to check in on me every day or every other day, whichever it might be, right here on A Giant Issue. I always appreciate it. And until next time, I'm Coach Gene Clemens, and I have a giant issue.